Bitcoin has been 1 month ahead of the S&P at every step this year. In January, it peaked before the S&P. It bottomed before the S&P in April. It made a new high in May, a month ahead of the S&P. And in early July, on July 9th, Bitcoin had a breakaway upside move, gaining more than 10%. That means that in this month, I think the S&P is going to have a breakaway move to the upside, towards 6,600.
Tom Lee begins with a striking observation. Bitcoin has been leading the S&P 500 all year long by exactly 1 month at each critical turning point.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Bitcoin has been 1 month ahead of the S&P at every step this year. In January, it peaked before the S&P. It bottomed before the S&P in April. It made a new high in May, a month ahead of the S&P. And in early July, on July 9th, Bitcoin had a breakaway upside move, gaining more than 10%. That means that in this month, I think the S&P is going to have a breakaway move to the upside, towards 6,600.
Interesting, which sort of takes us to where you think the S&P is going to be priced for the year.
Well, I think that at least 6,600 is a minimum, because if we're making 6,600 in the next few weeks, then I think that probably 7,000 is a level we could touch by the end of the year.
Really?
Yeah.
What propels us to that?
Well, I think that three things are happening. One is the economy has survived tariff Armageddon, and it's probably strengthening because we know the ISM has been stuck below 30 or 50 for 30 months now. So finally, ISM could go above 50. The second is that we're getting closer to the Fed making a dovish pivot. I mean, they've been on hold for a long time, similar to how Kelly's birth is on pause, but that, I think, leads to a re-rate of multiples. And the third is that I think sentiment's still quite bearish. I think there's many of our clients that think we're going to have a recession because of the tariffs that started on August 1st. But I think businesses are ready to actually get through that. And that sentiment collapsing actually helps PEs.
Okay. Let's talk about Ethereum, because I know you're very bullish on that as well. We'll get into Bitmine in a second, too. But Ethereum specifically, why is it something you need to hold in your portfolio? Well,
to me, Ethereum's having its Bitcoin 2017 moment again. And to give perspective, in 2017, Bitcoin was under 1,000. But that was the year when Wall Street discovered that the narrative of Bitcoin is digital gold. And Bitcoin has gone to 120,000 now. So 120 times increase. In 2025, a couple things are happening around Ethereum. The first is the Genius Act is now making stable coins kind of green-lighted, which is the ChatGPT moment for crypto, but it needs a smart contract, so it doesn't work on Bitcoin. The second is the SEC is pushing forward with Project Crypto, which is actually asking Wall Street to move the entire financial system onto the blockchain. Ethereum is the preferred choice for Wall Street because it's had zero downtime since inception, matching what the banks want, 100% uptime. It's also the most legally compliant and secure blockchain because it's recognized in the US and it's the second largest blockchain. And the third is almost all of it is taking place on Ethereum. JP Morgan's building their stablecoin on Ethereum. Robinhood is tokenizing on Ethereum. The custody banks are doing it on Ethereum. So it's really where Wall Street meets, but that's also where AI is meeting crypto. Because as you know, as we tokenize and move towards robots, you need a token economy to control them, which is taking place on Ethereum.
And which is why you're now the chair of Bitmine, which is looking to build out this treasury of Ethereum, not so differently than we've seen Michael Saylor do with Bitcoin at Strategy.
Yes, that's right. So I think that MicroStrategy has written the playbook for what a Bitcoin treasury is, and now he's so big he has a sovereign put, right? He has 600,000 Bitcoin. Any nation that wants to get 1 million Bitcoin probably thinks it's cheaper to buy MicroStrategy. The Ethereum treasury model, which is we're trying to be the MicroStrategy of Ethereum, works similarly, but we're at the earliest stages because if this is the 2017 moment for Ethereum at 3,700, it could make a move to 30,000 or more. On top of that, Ethereum pays you for providing network security by staking. That's a 3% yield. So Bitmine owns over $3 billion worth of Ethereum. When we start staking and it's legally compliant, all within the US, that's more than $100 million of revenue. I'm sorry, of net income. So it's a profitable treasury company. And we've been able to grow our holdings of Ethereum from roughly $4 per share in 30 days ago to over $25 today. So it's adding about 80 cents to a dollar worth of ETH every day.
Interesting. I mean, when I think about strategy, it is really it's the whale in the Bitcoin market just because they have been buying up so much Bitcoin. So if Bitmine is taking a similar approach to Ethereum, where do you see prices for Ether going?
Well, I looked at some research from Sean Farrell, who's our head of digital asset strategy, and he put out a presentation about Ethereum today. So he thinks the ratio of Ethereum to Bitcoin could go back to its 2021 highs, which is about 0.14. That would value Ethereum today at around 16,000, and it's currently 3,700. So he's just saying Bitcoin ratio versus ETH, let's get back to where it was 5 years ago, which makes sense because it's a better story today than it was in 2021, and that gets you, close to 16,000.
80,000 coins dumped on the weekend, spot. Yeah. It barely made a dent, and I think that is the most poignant example of reduced volatility. Like in past years, let's go back 4 or 5 years, that would have significantly dropped Bitcoin, at least temporarily. But now it's almost like Bitcoin's numb. There's nothing. It's like, yeah, drop 80K, drop 100K, maybe 500K. Nothing will happen. It'll just dip down a little bit, but the buy pressure is just massive and sustained. Like every corporation with a Bitcoin strategy is buying at that depressed price, and it just scoops it all up. This is just an inevitability. As Bitcoin becomes the new world reserve asset, the price will go up. It'll go to 1 million, it'll go to 10, and then it'll reach dollar sat parity. And probably before that happens, we hit a terminus point where, you stop pricing things in dollars because it doesn't make sense anymore. And there's tons of historical examples of this, right? Like fast failure of fiat currencies is the norm. It's not the exception. Look at the German mark, right? That's fast fail. Every fiat currency fast fails. It doesn't fail over 50 to 100 years. Except for maybe the dollar. It's failed over 100 years, but it's coming to a close. But as it increases in value, then of course you see less volatility because it takes more to make a dent. If you go back to, I think last year, right, the Saxony government in Germany, they dumped 50,000. And that made a bigger impact than the 80,000. So you can already see in a very short time frame a far more muted effect of coins being dropped.
Lee also warns that government adoption takes time. While interest is strong, especially post-FTX collapse, bureaucracies move slowly. Many governments are hesitant to act, preferring to watch, meet, and speculate without execution. To counter this, Lee's team at Gen3 is shifting strategy, moving away from flashy announcements and toward concrete pilot projects, sandboxes, and real-world integrations. This, he believes, is how Bitcoin and Ethereum adoption will spread, not from top-down declarations but bottom-up deployments.
So Hyperbitcoinization, if you don't know, is the point at which you don't need to sell Bitcoin anymore. It's like the meme from The Matrix where Morpheus asks Neo, what are you going to do when Bitcoin is $1 million? Like, you don't need to sell it. Right? It's just Bitcoin everywhere. But it's really just getting more Bitcoin adoption and making it so that you can just sit in Bitcoin and live your life in Bitcoin. And I guess the broader mission is to make Bitcoin accessible too, kind of extending what I started at Blockstream, because we build on a lot of Blockstream technology. A lot of people don't appreciate this, but Blockstream's invested massive amounts of capital and resources and manpower into these scaling technologies. And at Gen3, we're leveraging those things to build Aqua and build a super accessible wallet that anybody could use. Like your grandma can use Aqua, send and receive funds. But the goal is anybody could use Aqua and live their lives just keeping Bitcoin only and swapping out to stable coins, using a Visa card when you need to connect back to the fiat system. But that's the vision of of Jan 3, just making Bitcoin ubiquitous? Well, there's always been interest, and it waxes and wanes kind of with Bitcoin price and what's happening in Bitcoin. Every time the crypto space has a blow up like Terra Luna or FTX, that dampens a lot of our efforts because, Bitcoin becomes an unapproachable and undiscussable topic. So this is why it's important to spread also the message of Bitcoin only, because when you're playing with crypto, you're playing with fire, and these things usually don't end very well. But yeah, it does change from time to time based on market situation, but generally there is a lot of interest still. But we've shifted our strategy at Jan 3 a lot over the past, I would say, year and a half, to focus less on just engaging at a high level and bringing the theory of why Bitcoin adoption will benefit a country, but more focus on executing and starting small projects with governments to make sure that something's actually happening. Because what we found is a lot of governments are keen to meet and talk about it and possibly announce something, but then things drop off and nothing happens. So we're trying more to do less announcy things and meetings and actual projects, get things greenlit, small pilot projects, sandboxes, and things like that that will bring real adoption on the ground. The reason I joined Blockstream was to work on Bitcoin infrastructure. And possibly it was because of what I saw in the block size war and the demand for Bitcoin to scale. So working on technologies like Liquid, like Lightning, that would directly help Bitcoin reach billions of people around the world, I think was a very important step in my Bitcoin journey and something I think that the network needed. But also just building up more resiliency towards attacks, trying to mitigate something like the block size wars happening again, and kind of patching holes I thought were weak spots in Bitcoin's defense armor, like Block Explorer. I wanted to launch a Block Explorer because if you look back at the block size wars, most of the block explorers, which are sort of the source of truth for most people, were controlled by the opposition, the big blockers. So that was a big attack vector that I think could have swung things in their favor to control Bitcoin. But fortunately, they weren't smart enough to figure that one out. But we launched Blockstream Info, which is now an important part of the infrastructure of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and then Mempool Space launched too. So I think we're in a good place now on that front. But just getting more technology out there, letting more people take custody of their Bitcoin. We launched Blockstream Green. That was a rebrand of Green Address, which was acquired by Blockstream. We launched the Jade Wallet, but a lot of things to make Bitcoin more accessible to people. I think that's the most important thing.
Bitcoin is leading markets. Ethereum is evolving into the backbone of global finance. Volatility is falling as institutional adoption rises, and the next financial era will be defined not by fiat, but by code. So the question is simple: are you positioned for the breakout? Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who's still waiting on the sidelines. Let us know in the comments. Where do you see Ethereum and Bitcoin by year-end?